Hi, I'm Jeff Murrah. I want to welcome you to True Texas History, and I'm glad you tuned in today. Let me get things adjusted. Uh, I did put up a video yesterday, and if you were one of those lucky enough to catch it before they took it down, that's great. Apparently, my topic was a little too controversial for Facebook, although I thought, looking at the question of what did Sam say, what would Sam say, referring to Sam Houston, on the topic of secession would be good, but and that's all I'll talk about that. I did want to go ahead and talk about the flags of Texas independence in February of 1836. In February of 1836, things were getting moving in the direction of Texas seceding from Mexico. Now, prior to that time, like for instance, I believe it was in either October or November of 1835, when some of the volunteers came to help the Texans, you had the Feast of Liberty there in Nacogdoches with Adolphus Stern. And, they had, quite a spread, this big old table with all sorts of stuff. And the centerpiece was this big old bear that they had grilled, and in the bear's mouth was the 1824 flag. And some of the people there were wondering, should we go ahead and fight for Texas independence? And they were told in no uncertain terms, be careful and be quiet about talking about independence, because there's not everyone's in favor of it. And many times, to placate those people that were not in favor of Texas independence, they had to, the movers and shakers had to do things on the QT. And that's why they went with the 1824 flag, because you have the Mexican tricolor, which was used, and another flag that was used. It looks like the Mexican tricolor, except it has two six-pointed stars in that center column, and that was the flag of Texas and Coahuila. So between those two flags, those were the ones that were initially used through February of 1836. Things changed once Texas issued its Declaration of Independence, that because the people that wanted independence wanted nothing to do with reforming the Mexican Constitution, and the 1824 flag sends a message: we want to try to reform and make things better. But when it became clear that the tyrannical regime of Santa Anna was not about to be reformed, they knew that they had no other option than to seek independence. But they had to be quiet at first until they gathered enough strength to go ahead and move in force against Santa Anna and his tyrannical forces. And of course, any military units in Texas had to have a standardized Mexican flag that, but it included, Coahuila y Tejas as part of it. Now, each of the volunteer groups also came in with their own flags. There was the Red Rovers, which I talked about today. There are also the New Orleans Grays, and a few others that came to Texas, each with their own banner. Now, with the Alamo, there's been a lot of debate over what flag flew there, and much of this depends on what source you go with. Now, it's only sources after 1860 that identify the flag there as 1824 flag. But some of the eyewitnesses, there was one episode where a Texas y Coahuila flag was reported flying. There's been some of, the Texian flag, which I talked about in the previous episode, where you had In the corner, you had a lone star and a blue field, and then you had the alternating patriot stripes. Now, the 1824 flag was used on the naval vessels when they were sailing with the letters of marque. This was one of the requirements that they had. I have not seen all the documentation from people who were victims of the Texas privateers to find out what kind of flag that they were flying, but that was officially the one that they were supposed to fly. Because what happens, the flag that you're flying says something about the sentiment of the people. Now, that 1824 flag was actually designed by Philip Dimmitt. Now, Dimmitt is also the one behind what we typically call the Goliad flag, the bloody arm flag, where you see an arm holding a sword, a severed arm holding a sword, which definitely screams secession. And that one was put into place in December of 1835, although it was limited to Goliad, and some of the people wanted to silence Dimmitt and his outspoken push for independence, because they felt like it was too early, because he was pushing for it in December and everybody else was hoping for March. But anyways, I wanted to go ahead and deal with those topics. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for your support. It does make a world of difference. I got to figure out what I'm going to do about the Sam Houston speech, getting that information to you, because I think it would help you in the times in which we live. But like I said, it got deplatformed and the video got taken down. So until next time, this is Jeff Murrah wishing you vaya con Dios, my friends. Goodbye.